So what I wanted to go through today is Windows 10. I think pretty much everyone is probably aware that I don't know if it was, I guess 3 weeks ago now, that Windows 10 was released. And over the years, there's been lots of releases of Windows, and each one, Microsoft hypes up, and I think we do as well to a certain extent because if we're in the business, we like new stuff and the new capabilities. So usually I do have some type of a session or I talk to our clients ahead of time about new operating systems and how it may affect your business. This time around, however, actually throughout the years, through the various different versions of Windows, there are certain events that made one version, maybe more had more things in it, or more things that affect our customers than other versions. Some of them were just somewhat cosmetic. They all had some things, and we'll talk about a little in a minute here about some of the differences that some of the different versions of Windows, some of the things that they introduced. But in some cases, some had a lot more impact in the long term than others. And actually, Windows 10 is one of those things for many reasons, and we'll talk about that today. The other thing that, as I mentioned, I'll go through it just a very quick. It won't be in detail because we could be here all day, but a quick history of Windows, just to explain, as we look back on these previous versions, what we now take for granted as capabilities. For instance, being able to play a CD or a DVD, we all take that for granted now. But back in the early days, that either did not exist in most cases, and before it actually became native to the operating system, it was much more difficult to plug in a CD and do what we consider today simple things. So I wanted to go through just the various versions of Windows and what some of the things that were introduced with those versions that we now look back and it's a whole hum thing. But at the time, it was a type of it was like an aha thing. So I'm gonna actually show some of those things today, and that's the section about why is Windows 10 different. I'm going to actually talk about some of the new technologies that are built into Windows. And when we go through that, I want you to understand that everything that I'm showing here is available today. In some cases, some of the items that are there might require some changes of hardware, and I'll discuss that a little bit. But all of the technology that I'm going to show today is available right now within Windows 10. Then we'll take a look at Windows 10. I'll go into my desktop and I'll show you some of the new, at least the visual things with Windows 10, and we'll talk about some of the things under the hood. And then, as I said, we'll leave some time for questions at the end. And again, if you have questions while we're going along, you can just type them into the chat, and I'll try to address them as we go along. So, what's the big deal about the Windows 10? Actually, there's several big deals. Some of them have to do with technology, and some of them have to do with the way that Windows is going to be presented in the future. So the first line that I have here, this is the last version of Windows that as we know it. And what I mean by that is once Windows 10 is on a device, there will be no upgrades to Windows 11 or 12 or whatever it might be. There will be no upgrades. Instead, Windows 10 is starting a process that Microsoft is rolling out, which is Windows as a service. So what that means is instead of every 3 or 4 years or so having a new version of Windows and trying to make a decision whether you need to install it or not and what are the implications, those types of things, and then also paying for either paying for the upgrade or what in most cases what occurred, at least for our client base, is when you bought a new machine, you get the new version of Windows on there. That's going to change with Windows 10. When you buy a machine with Windows 10 or when you upgrade your machines to Windows 10, Windows will be updated for the life of that device. And it will be incremental updates. So instead of every 3 years having a big hit from some big, all the different changes, pretty much on a monthly, weekly, quarterly basis, there's going to be updates rolled out to Windows. Some of those will be as they are now, security updates and bug fixes and that type of thing. But they will also be incremental changes in functionality and things. In some cases, those things, they may roll out a function that is not not generic for the public. So I don't know, some high-ended thing, and you'll see some of the things as we go through some of the demonstration. There may be areas where this will occur, but there may be modules that they put out that you might pay for if you want them, but those would be separate items. Underneath the hood of Windows 10, it will continually be updated as you go along. There's a bunch of new technologies built in, and some of these technologies literally are going to change the world, and that's not an understatement. You'll see with some of the stuff that we're doing that I'm going to show you. And the thing is, I put this line in here: the future is arriving with Windows 10. It reminds me over the years of where I said the future is computers and all of this. Well, things have changed a lot, and obviously the future is not computers. Future is here, and we're all using computing devices of different types every single day, at home, in the business, everywhere. What Windows 10 is doing, though, is it's starting to pull together some really neat technologies that kind of have been around for a little while in pieces, but they're putting them together, and they have built them into Windows 10. So, like I said before about a CD, we take it for granted that you can put a CD or a DVD in your machine, and it just knows what to do with it and does its thing. Early on, that wasn't the case. It was a pain in the neck to do a CD. We bought one of the first CD players when they came out, and we had to have special card inside the machine and all of these things. And of course, that's all past now. Some of the technologies that are in Windows 10, we'll look at those today, and then we'll feel that way, that wow, this is really something. But as software gets developed and usage gets developed around some of these technologies, you're going to see some pretty wild stuff. And as I said before, a new licensing model, you're not going to be moving forward. And we have to go through this phase where, there's still people on older versions of Windows, so it's going to take a while. But once you get on Windows 10, you will no longer be upgrading your machines to Windows 11 or 12 or whatever. It'll just happen as you go. And there's two paths with that. There's a consumer model and a business model, and we'll talk about those a little bit as we go along here. So one of the things I wanted to do, as I said, Windows has been out for a couple of weeks. I think some of you might have seen some advertising on TV even for Windows 10. And what I wanted to do here is I have, through this presentation, I think I have 2 videos, and each one of them I put in here for a specific reason. And when the video is over, I'll explain some of the reason that I put the videos in here. I'm running a bunch of technology to make this actually work. So I have, if you saw my office, I have wires going in and out of my computer and everything else, so that because the way that GoToMeeting works is it makes it a little tough to mix audio and video along with a USB microphone headset. So I have to juggle a little bit here. So I'm going to switch the sound over to the video for this. I think this video is about 1.5 minutes or something, and then I'll be right back. So I'm going to go ahead and start the
Let's tell the world all the things we've done, falling in love in the setting sun.
These kids won't have to remember passwords or obsess about security. For them, every screen is meant to be touched, and web pages are meant to be scribbled on and shared. They'll expect their devices to listen to them and talk, and sing, tell a funny joke. And as they grow and get better at things, their technology will too. They'll do things their parents never even dreamed of. Because these kids will grow up with Windows 10. The future starts now, for all of us. Get started today. Windows 10, a more human way to do.
Okay, so one of the reasons why I put this video in here is, if you notice, the video really has to do generally with younger people, actually really young people. But the reason why I put this here is, usually when there's new versions of Windows that come out, most often, or not most often, always, the first thing that everybody evaluates is the user interface. So, you know, when Windows XP came out, it was different than Windows 3.1, so everybody looks at that and they either like it or they don't like it, or whatever. And then when Windows 7 came out, that was different, so people either liked it or not. But all of those evaluations generally, and it's just natural, the first evaluations, and especially with business people, is what you see. It's the interface itself. And yes, I mean, that's an important part of any new version of an operating system. But from my standpoint, what's even more important is what's under the hood. What technologies are included or embedded in this new version of the operating system. And those technologies you don't generally see right away. You'll see today when we go through some of the new stuff in Windows 10, you're not going to see this right away. If you, for the people that are putting Windows 10 on their machines now, we're still doing kind of the same applications. We're still going to do Office. We're still going to do browsing. We're still going to do all of those things. And in the short term, there will be changes, obviously, with the user interface, and we'll look at that today. But software developers have already started working on this, but as time passes, they'll start utilizing some of these new technologies, and it's going to enable lots of things to happen. I've always looked at the different versions of Windows as enablers. They enable technologies that several years out all of a sudden become second nature, and that's exactly what the case is with Windows 10. So some of the things that we're seeing right now, that you'll see today, the people that will get the most bang out of those things will probably be a couple, 3, 4 years down the road, when software vendors start utilizing some of these technologies into their applications. So as I said, I wanted to kind of go through just a quick, very quick overview of the history of Windows. And originally I was going to do this slide here. I left it in, but I actually found early this morning a little slide presentation that I was able to borrow. I talked with the people who created it, and they said it's fine. So about the history, it's actually done pretty well. So believe it or not, Windows 1.0 was back in 1985, so it's 30 years ago now, since Windows itself came out. Back then, Windows was not even an operating system; it was just an application. But what it did introduce some new things. It introduced the graphics on the screen. It introduced the mouse. Previous to that, we were not using those things, and of course nowadays it may not be the mouse, but it may be our fingers or our voice, but we still have some type of input device beyond the keyboard. So that all started way back then. In 1990, and I wanted to kind of show here that that's a 5-year difference. Things are changing a lot faster now. Actually, with Windows 1.0, you didn't even, as I said, it wasn't an operating system. What you had to do is you bought Excel at the time, and Excel had Windows in it. And you would load Windows just like you did in any other application, and then Excel would run in it. They were more or less experimenting at that time with the graphical stuff. But with Windows 3, we added a little bit higher video capabilities. We introduced, or Microsoft introduced the hard drive, the ability to use a hard drive. Previous to that, most of the things were floppy drives. Toward the end of 1.0, you started seeing hard drives become available, but they were very expensive and actually pretty problematic. So from there, in 1995, Windows 95 came out, and that was actually a big change. Windows 95 was one of those things that Windows started becoming real and having more capabilities than previous versions, number one, but also gave us the ability to do some things that we couldn't do before. So the start button occurred in Windows 95. Internet at this point started to become a lot bigger. I don't know if people remember, but Microsoft was a little bit behind the times with the internet related stuff. And one day, Bill Gates realized that and went in and had this big conquer the world speech with all of the Microsoft employees. And from that point forward, Internet Explorer was born, and basically a lot of stuff changed. The other thing that occurred around Windows 95 is the way that sound was done in a computer became a lot easier, a lot less expensive, and it was built in. So you didn't have to, in the past, it was a big deal to plug in a sound card and make drivers and connect wires and all this other stuff internal to the computer. With 95, all that stuff started changing as far as sound goes. And then probably one of the more popular versions of Windows in the past was Windows 98, which was they added a bunch of things. One of the big things in Windows 98 is we began seeing instead of every single piece of hardware you buy had to have unique drivers and all of these things, drivers started to be built into Windows for sound cards, for printers, for all of these things. So you could plug them in. You still had to install drivers at that time, but it was much easier to do because a lot of the work was done by Windows and not by the driver itself. And then from Windows 98, we went out about 3 years to Windows XP, which was, again, one of the most popular versions. In fact, unfortunately, we still have some people today with Windows XP, which is not a good thing at this point relative to security and capabilities, but there are some people still running it. But at the time, there was some changes to the user interface, a better design of the interface, as well as better graphics capabilities in the devices. With XP, DVDs became native. Previous to Windows XP, you could use CDs, but DVDs were a special bear. But with Windows XP, DVDs became secondary. They just worked. Then Vista came out. For those that remember that, Vista was did not gain a lot of ground. There are several reasons. One of those reasons was, though, that it was a different platform. It changed drastically underneath the hood from Windows XP. There were compatibility issues. There were driver issues. There were a lot of problems. Most companies stayed away from it. The media downplayed it pretty bad, or badmouthed it pretty badly, and people just didn't bother with it. However, there were some that did, and we actually have a few customers that are still running Vista. And the fact of the matter is, as time passed, they fixed the driver issues. They fixed most of the issues, and for the most part, it's at least reliable. There still is problems with it, but it opened the door for the next version, which was Windows 7. Windows 7 is probably the most popular to date, is probably the most popular version of Windows. The most machines run this than anything else at this point. Windows 7 really just took over Windows Vista, and they fixed all the issues, the driver issues, made things work better, and successfully moved from the XP platform to the new, we'll call it Windows 7 platform, but you'll see it really, that platform stays through Windows 8 as well as into Windows 10. So that really was the change. Microsoft was finally successful in getting that new platform out there. And this enabled things like easier wireless connectivity, more capabilities with applications and more secure type of stuff. We started getting concerned about security back with XP, but with Windows 7, it started really pretty heavily into security and things. So there were a lot of things added in Windows 7. And then in 2012, Windows 8 came out. The whole premise behind Windows 8 was Microsoft saw, the iPads were around, all of the phones with the touch devices, and they realized that that's kind of the direction back then of the future. So they created Windows 8 to take advantage of the touch capabilities and smaller devices. But they had a problem. The marketing, it was designed so that when you put it on a tablet, it looked the same way as if you put it on a desktop. And that was problems, because on a tablet where you have touch and everything, if you have you'll see in a minute, for those of you who have not seen Windows 8, it uses tiles and things like that, and which are fine when you're in a device that has touch. But if you're on a regular workstation, it's very difficult and a pain in the neck to use. So their mistake was they just said, look, we're going to put this on all so everybody has the same thing, so you don't have to, and that was a mistake. So they actually, there was really a phase in between here called Windows 8.1, which is what most people get when they get Windows 8 right now. And what that really fixed all of the issues, most of the issues that Windows 8 brought out. Windows 8 did away with the start button. Windows 8, as I said, used the tile interface as a totally different interface. So with Windows 8.1, they redesigned it a bit, used all of the good stuff, but said, look, if we install this on a regular workstation, we're going to bring it to your normal desktop like you're used to. And if we install it on a tablet, we'll go ahead and put the tiles on, which actually work better on a tablet because you don't have a keyboard and mouse, etc. And they did a few other things to make it. They brought back the start menu, at least parts of it, and people got more comfortable. And actually, people are pretty happy with Windows 8.1 in general. Then from there, this is what the tile interface looks like, and we're going to look at that a little bit with Windows 10. But so that brings us up to today with Windows 10. So with Windows 10, basically, as I was saying before, there's a bunch of new cutting-edge technology built into Windows 10. The good thing is that Windows 10 really is Windows 7 and Windows 8 rolled forward, so it's not like we're starting over. Vista was actually a restart of the operating system, and moving forward from there, we've moved into Windows 10. It's evolved. It's not a totally different product, and we'll go through. I'll show you, a lot of the functions or a lot of the capabilities in Windows 10 in a minute here. So I'm gonna jump out of this. So what's different about Windows 10? So first of all, we need to go back a little bit. As I said, Windows 7 was pretty well liked. The design was such that people liked the way that it worked. Yeah, it was different, so you had to get used to it a little bit. But I find myself and even our clients, when I go to them, if they're running Windows 7 now and for some reason they had to go back to a Windows XP machine, it's pretty easy to tell whether one version is better than the other when you go back and you say, how come I can't do this or how come I can't do that? And when you first put the new version on, it's like, well, where is this? Where is that? If you go backwards and you realize, geez, this is actually better, that's when you notice it, when you go back to an older version. Windows 8 was a drastic change, as I said. It had the tiles and just the touch came into play and all of those things. So that was a bit problematic. What Windows 10 is, it just combined the best of both worlds. So with Windows 10, you have the ability to use the tiles and things if you're on a tablet, and they've obviously updated all that functionality. But if you put it on a regular workstation or a device that doesn't have touch, it'll install with the desktop, but it also now includes a more robust start menu than what Windows 7 or 8 had. So it kind of combined the best of both and added new functionality and some really neat new technologies. So one thing that everybody needs to be aware of for more than one reason is that Windows 10 is a free upgrade for all Windows 7 and 8 users. So if you're running Windows 7 or Windows 8, you can upgrade to Windows 10 for free for 1 year. 1 year from when it was released, which is a couple weeks back. This is one place where I'm going to stop for a second and talk about the two paths that I mentioned before. There's a consumer path and a business path. So with System Support Group, all of the discussion we usually have and all of the advice and all of the opinions are related to business. So I might say one thing to somebody that's a business owner, and if I go home and my sister-in-law asks me a question about technology, I may tell her a different thing because it's consumer, and there's different issues and concerns there than there are in business. The consumer is not concerned as much about having the device run in their network environment and all of those things. Consumers are not worried so much about having standardization and being able to control large numbers of machines and all of that. But and so that's generally how we approach things. Right now with Windows 10, lots of times people are asking, should I put it on? So if you're a consumer, so if you have Windows 7 or Windows 8 at home, and you want to install Windows 10, should you do that? The answer is sure. You got to be careful because it is an update. It's pretty smart in that it'll go through and look at your machine before it starts doing the update, and it'll say something is not compatible, or there may be a problem with this. Do you want to proceed? Do you not want to proceed? Also, if it's doing the upgrade and it runs into a problem and crashes out, it'll actually put the previous version of the operating system on. So I've installed this now on many devices all the way back about probably 8 months ago when they first came out, and there've been some pretty ugly releases of the beta. I gotta get a drink of water. There were some pretty ugly releases of the beta. But basically, it'll just roll itself back, and you'll have the previous version on. So for the most part, it's pretty safe. It's not 100% guarantee. So make sure everything is backed up, and make sure that you at least have some idea of when questions are asked in there, you have some idea of how to answer them. On the business side, the other thing about the consumer side, and this may affect some business, is that Windows 10 is being rolled out as a Windows update. It's not quite that bad in that what happens is there is a Windows update that was released about a month ago or so that puts a little icon down in your system tray down on the right-hand side with it looks like a set of windows. And that set of windows, when you click it, will say that there's a new version of Windows available, and it'll ask you to reserve it. And you would, if you're going to do that, you go in and reserve it. It doesn't automatically download it, at least not right at this point. That may change as they roll out, as they start decreasing the demand. But right now, you have to reserve it. So you would reserve it through there, and then when it's available, a little indicator will come up and say it's ready to be installed, and then you can go through and do the process. I can tell you, I just did my wife's that way day before yesterday, and it only took, I think the following day she had the software, or had the ability to download the software. So it's pretty quick once you do that. Now for businesses, if you're on our monitoring system, we've disabled that update, that flag, so that users themselves won't go ahead and install Windows 10. But if you're in a business where you're if either small or you don't have any type of management on stuff, it will attempt to download to individual machines. So you need to be aware of that. Now, the question as to whether you should put it on or not, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but generally speaking, I wouldn't worry about it at the moment. It's not something that, just because it's new and shiny, that we have to go out, all run out and do. There may be cases where, or in most cases, I would advise clients, especially if you have a lot of machines. There may be cases where you want to get either a laptop or a full machine and set it up to do testing. You want to test your apps and all of those things. My experience so far is I have had zero application compatibility issues. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't any, but in reality, as I said before, Windows 10 is it's upgrade from Windows 8, and that platform is the same. So if anything, that platform has gotten cleaner and cleaner. And as long as you're using up-to-date applications, I don't think you're going to see any issues. If you are still running, and I do have clients that are still running DOS applications, or applications that won't run in Windows 7 or something, they're probably not going to run in here. So you need to consider that. But like I say, I don't see there as being any real necessity for clients to run out tomorrow and start their plans to install Windows 10. In fact, I would probably advise against it at the moment. So one of the other things that they've done, I mentioned this a little bit before, is once you get Windows 10 on the machine, and again, there's two paths with this too, consumer and business. So the consumer side of things is that it will automatically do updates. You have no choice. It's just going to do them. And it'll just happen. Some of them will require reboot, some of them won't. Again, some of them will be security issues like they are today. Some of them will be bug fixes like they are today, and some of them will be new functionality that they will describe. And but you can't not do it. On the business side, you also can't not do it. However, they are giving some options as far as how updates get rolled out. You can create what they call bands. So you can have a band of, let's say, early adopters or a test group, where when a new update comes out, it goes out to the test group first, it can be tested, and then the second band of users can, once it gets past the first band, the second band can kick in. But it does require that it occurs. So even though there's some methods in there to kind of control a little bit, I think this is one area where they'll probably be tweaking over time. But as it stands right now, the best that you can do as a business is you can use bands to roll out the updates. What we're going to be doing at SSGI is we're advised of most of all of the updates. We're on an early band before they even get released out to the public. So if there's things that are of any consequence, I'm going to try to have some type of communication mechanism, whether it be emails or webinars or whatever, so that people are aware if there's anything. I mean, if it's just bug fixes and security related things, I'm not going to worry about that. But if there's things that are coming out, either new functionality or some drastic user interface changes, I'm going to communicate that with our clients. The other thing about Windows 10, Microsoft has for many years has been talking about having one operating system that runs across multiple device types. With Windows 10, they actually now have it. I don't know if it's 100% perfect, but it's pretty darn good. So what you're looking on the screen right now is a cell phone with Windows 10 on it, which is actually has not been released yet, but it is available. I've run it on my phone. And what it looks very similar and acts very similar to if you're running it on a tablet or if you're running it on a laptop or a regular full-size machine. And at the end of the year, you're going to be able to buy, I think it's a 50-inch and an 84-inch display that actually has a computer with built-in Windows 10 in it. And it will work the same across all of those devices, all those form factors. This is not totally available right now, and it will over the next few years probably be modified quite a bit. But there's a new, in the next couple months, there's going to be 2 versions of Microsoft Office available. For the regular version of Office, like we're all familiar with right now, the current version is 2013. It's going to change to 2016. But there will be another version, which is called, and it's already available. It ships with Windows 10 if you're in a smaller tablet. It's called Office for Windows 10. And what that is it's a version of Office that's totally redesigned around touch and around the idea of being able to run the application on a phone, on a laptop, a tablet, a workstation, whatever, and have that application pretty much look the same. I mean, obviously, if you're on a 5-inch, 4-inch phone screen, there's going to be some differences over what might be presented on an 84-inch screen. But in reality, I've used it across them, and the documents, the regular documents, do look and act very similar between those devices. So you can actually do that now. Windows is available on small phones and on tablets and things, but the new version is much more designed around using touch and things. So as I say, that's available now, but as time passes, all of that stuff will get tweaked. So what's different? What are some of the new things in Windows 10? There's a bunch, and some of them I'm going to be able to demonstrate today. Some of them, because of the technology constraints of using GoToMeeting, I won't be able to demonstrate totally, but I'll give you a pretty good idea of how it works. I do see there's a question from Eric about 8.1. Yeah, the upgrade, I assume that means you were talking about the upgrade. Yeah, you can. It's a free upgrade from version 7 and up, if that describes it better. Any of those devices can get a free upgrade. So one of the things that's included in Windows 10, and actually this was introduced on the Windows Phone first. It's called Cortana. It's a personal assistant. So the best quick explanation of Cortana is, for those of you that have iPhones, you're familiar with Siri. And actually that runs on iPads and everything now. Siri is somewhat of a personal assistant as well. For the moment, you can look at Cortana as Siri on steroids. In September or October, depending on when it actually gets released, there's going to be a new version of Siri. It's going to look more similar or act more similar to Cortana with its capabilities. However, the other thing is that Microsoft is bringing out Cortana, as well as a lot of their other applications, to run in the Apple environment, meaning iPhones, iPads, Macs, as well as in the Android environment. So Cortana is one of those applications that will be available on those other platforms as well. So I'll show you a little more of Cortana when I go through the demonstration. And this is one of the ones that I can't show completely because the way that one of the ways that Cortana is most useful is you can just talk. So I can pick up my phone and I can tell it things, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But during the demo, I'll talk about that, but I have to actually type in what I'm going to do. I can't talk into it during the demo. Another new technology is something called Hello. Hello is biometric authentication. So, we all know that passwords are becoming a problem. Security is becoming more and more of a problem almost every day. So some biometric stuff has already been available, namely the fingerprint stuff for the most part. But again, this is one of those things, the fingerprint stuff is, with Windows 8, it started getting native to the operating system. But previous to that, you actually had to install stuff to make it work. Now, if you bought a laptop and it had fingerprint stuff on it, you didn't have to do anything. The vendor did it all. But with Hello, it's actually embedded, it's native to the operating system, this biometric stuff. So one of the methods that you can use to sign into your computer with Windows 10 is your face. And what you do is you sit down, you look at you have to have obviously a webcam. You look at the camera, it sees you and it can detect that it's you, and I'll tell you what, it's pretty darn good. But it detects that it's you and logs you in. There was an issue during the beta testing where people were saying, well, sometimes I sit down in front of my computer and I don't want it to log in. So there's an option, they created an option on it that you can look at the screen and turn your head left to right, and then it will log in. If you don't turn left and right or right and left or whatever it is, it won't log in just by looking at it. So those are the types of things. It's a new technology. It's really pretty well baked, but as users use it, things come up, and so there'll be changes made to address those things. The other method, because as I said, you can use fingerprint, you can use your face, and you can use your iris. So those things are built in now into Windows 10. But this is one case where, in order to do some of those things, you have to have new versions of hardware. You have to have certain type of webcams that support certain technologies in order for that to work. There are, in the case of the webcams, there are a couple that are available now, but pretty much everybody's building them. And I would say between now and the end of the year, probably all the webcam vendors will have them. They'll be readily available. Right now, not so much. But and for businesses, a lot of people don't just have webcams. If you have a laptop now, more than likely the webcam that's built into it is not going to support the face recognition. If you buy some brand new computer that has Windows 10 on it, it's more likely that one would support it. So that's another technology. That one I can't really show much with in the demo here. There's a brand new browser in Windows 10, and it's called Edge. I will demonstrate that for you. Internet Explorer, it goes way back, as you saw in the timeline there. It's, even though sometimes it gets a bad rap, and in a lot of cases for good reason, it's still the #1 browser in the market by a pretty good margin. Over the years, Firefox and Chrome have really chipped away at it, and they're both pretty good browsers. But one of the things that made them better, if we want to say that, or different than Internet Explorer, was that they started out much more lightweight, much more flexible. You could add with plugins, you could add utilities, you could add things to do within the browser, and Internet Explorer didn't allow that. At this point, Internet Explorer is getting kind of old. It's an old tool, and it's been upgraded along the way, but nonetheless, it's it's not a small application. So they wrote Edge with that in mind. Edge is a much smaller browser. It supports plugins, and it supports a bunch of other technologies that right now the other browsers do not do. It's a pretty good browser. I've been using it. For the most part, it's pretty good. Like any other browser, there are sites that have compatibility issues. One thing about Edge is if Edge detects that the site is looking for Internet Explorer itself, it'll actually automatically switch to Internet Explorer 11. So Windows 10 includes, that was something somebody had said before, not in this group, but somebody I was talking to, that that Internet Explorer is not there. That's not true. Internet Explorer is built into Windows 10. It's Internet Explorer 11. And so both of those browsers are on there. And I'll show you a little bit about some of the things that Edge can do. It's pretty cool. Continuum is a new technology that has been designed because of the change of all of the different hardware technology. So, for instance, there are devices called 2-in-1s. Most of us have probably seen them. I have a Microsoft Surface Pro, but there's a bunch of manufacturers that make them. They're a tablet and a laptop kind of in one. So it looks like a laptop, and you can one way or another pull the keyboard off, and it becomes a tablet. One of the issues with all of that is the transition between the two. So when you're in a laptop mode, if you want, and then you take the keyboard off, you have to make changes in the device to tell it, okay, I'm using touch now and all of that. Otherwise, it gets really hairy to go back and forth. What Continuum does, in the simplest sense, is it manages all of that for you. So on the Surface Pro now, when I pull the keyboard off, it automatically switches to tablet mode, and the way that Windows works changes. So when you're in a tablet mode, when you're using a tablet and you open up applications, generally you don't want them in Windows. You want them to take up the full screen. That's just because of how you're using it in a tablet. So it automatically does all of that. And then when you put the keyboard back on, it says, oh, okay, I'm a laptop now. It puts all the applications back in Windows like you're used to using on your regular Windows desktop, and does a few other things as far as sizing of icons and this and that, and you can work. So that's all automatic now. In addition to that, Windows phones, and again, this is another one of those things that you can't take a current phone and put Windows 10 on it and then have this occur. But Windows 10 phones, the ones that are being designed right now, that should or not designed, but being at this point assembled, that should be coming out before the end of the year. The new hardware will allow you to take a Windows phone and set it down next to a larger monitor that supports this technology, and a keyboard and mouse, Bluetooth, and actually connect to those things with your phone, and it will automatically change the display from a 4 or 5 inch display, which is what's on a phone, to whatever size screen you have. So if you have a 27-inch monitor, it'll automatically adjust to that size screen. In addition to that, if you're running the Office for Windows 10 applications, and let's say you're using Word on the phone, obviously it's going to be a smaller screen to type on and all of that. When you switch it up to the larger screen, Word will also automatically adjust itself, and you'll be working on a larger screen, and basically you're carrying your computer around with you on your phone. Now, I don't want to give people the illusion that becomes your computer, because at this point it's pretty close, but at this point the phones are not as powerful as a regular computer as far as that goes, but I'll tell you, it's not far off. So that's probably the coolest technology that's built into Windows 10 that you won't see right away is HoloLens. I'm going to show you a video about HoloLens because it's much more difficult to talk about this than it is to show you this video that gives you some ideas of what HoloLens is and what it's capable of doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show that video, and then after the video I'll come back and we'll talk again. And again, I use this video for specific purposes. As it's playing, there's certain things there that we'll talk about. So give me 2 seconds here, and I'm going to switch over to that video.
Look around. Technology is all around us. We use it in every aspect of our lives. It enables us to do amazing things. But what if we could go further? What if we could go beyond the screen, where your digital world is blended with your real world? Now we can. This is the world with holograms. What will they enable us to do? New ways to visualize our work.
I have an idea for the fuel tank.
New ways to share ideas with each other.
How are things going your end?
I just put the images in OneDrive.
Perfect.
More immersive ways to play. New ways to teach and learn.
So put the new trap in the place of the old one.
Now what?
And tighten here and here.
New ways to collaborate and explore the places we've never been.
Look at this formation. Let's take a closer look.
And new ways to create the things we imagine. Because when you change the way you see the world, you can change the world you see. This is Microsoft HoloLens.
Okay, so that's some pretty cool stuff, and you know, as I say, this is in there now. This is not something that they're working on. I mean, I shouldn't say that they're working on and making better and doing new applications and all that, but the technology is in Windows 10 right now. Actually, there's a healthcare school of some sort somewhere that they created their own video of their application of HoloLens, and it's pretty wild how they're teaching the students using this technology and showing the human body and being able to like take layers off and put layers on. It's totally amazing. But so some of the things that you saw in here, first of all, for a lot of people, I think we all are somewhat familiar with virtual reality. And the way that typical virtual reality systems work is and there's different types. You can go into a room, but typically you put some type of a headset on, and that headset basically encloses your eyeballs into this environment, and then you can think of it as it's playing a movie inside of those goggles, and that's what you're immersed in. You're living in that window. You're living inside of the goggles. Pretty cool stuff. You can do some pretty wild stuff with that. What HoloLens technology is almost, I call it almost the opposite of that, because what it's doing is it's actually taking the room or the space that you're in, and it analyzes it when you turn it on. It analyzes the room, and then it projects these things into the lens, but it's within the room that you're in. It's not within inside of the actual lens itself. That's why you were looking at the person that was playing the game, for instance, and he was touching things and moving things on a countertop, and you know, in reality, there's nothing on the counter, but the counter is real. The counter is there. So this is actually projecting those images out. You saw the person with the Netflix towards the end there, where he pointed up and a screen appeared on his wall with Netflix. The wall is there, the screen with Netflix, the application, and he could play the movie there. Is fake. I mean, it's real in the sense of he can actually watch that movie in there, but it's not an actual object that's hanging on the screen. You saw on the refrigerator there were like little sticky notes that were there. Those were, that were not sticking on there. Some of the interesting stuff, though, is you saw the father and the daughter. I assume daughter. That was, she had a leak in her sink pipes or whatever. She had the glasses on. Her father could see what she was seeing, and when he marked with his fingers on his tablet screen, it actually was projecting into the glasses. So she was seeing where he circled around those pipes. She was looking at the pipes and saw those circles go around there that he was pointing to. Pretty wild stuff. Now, this stuff it's built in, but this is one of those things that right now it's kind of a ooh ah type of thing. But a few years down the line here, this will be like CD technology. We'll start seeing these things will be built into the glasses, for instance, like you're seeing on the screen right now. They're kind of big and bulky and all of that. They're actually working on putting this stuff in contact lenses down into that size. So it's kind of interesting to see what happens. This is early on in this technology, so this is one of those things that'll take a while, but this is a game changer as far as technology goes. It's pretty cool stuff. All right, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at Windows 10. So I'm going to close out of this, and you should be seeing my desktop right now. Now this is a regular desktop. I have multiple monitors, so I moved all of my garbage off of my monitor and put it on the other one, so you guys can't see how messy I am. So this is a clear monitor, but I did that so there's no distraction of what I'm going to show. So actually, I have a list of things I want to show. Okay. So first of all, as I said during it looks, now again, this is installed on a regular workstation right now. So this is what you would see. It's like a regular desktop. There are a lot of changes, but it's a desktop. One of the complaints when Windows 8 came out was that the start menu was gone. With Windows 8.1, they put start menu back, at least some pieces of it, and it was better. People liked it better. In Windows 10, it's even better. So it's actually, I think, better than what it originally was, even in Windows 7. So if I click on the start button, this is what I see. Okay, so on the left is something somewhat familiar to what we have. We had before. Our applications were all over here, and they're still there. I can click this all apps, and it will list off all the applications alphabetically, and I can pick one and run it or whatever. So very similar to before. But the difference is we now have the tiles. Now, originally in Windows 8, these what you see as tiles here basically took up the whole screen, and there was no start menu. There was a start screen instead of a start menu. Some people actually like that, or if you're on a device that's you're on a tablet or something, you can actually set this to default to the start screen instead of this is the start menu. The start screen would be more or less full screen of all of this stuff, and there is an option to turn that on for people that want that. But with the tiles, these are called live tiles. And for those of you that are familiar with Windows 7, but not with Windows 8, some of this terminology will be new. But if you've already used Windows 8, you have some idea of this. But these are called live tiles. And live tiles are just that. So this is a weather tile, and it constantly updating with the weather. And if I click it, it'll open the weather app, and I'll have other things I can do. These are all other active things. There's travel channel that just changes pictures or whatever. I have photos here. The photos will just roll through. You can define how fast you want them to roll through. But all of these tiles are movable. Okay, so I can pick them up and move them somewhere else. I can remove them. So if I right click and say unpin, I'm not uninstalling the application. I'm just taking it off of the start menu. I can group them. So up at the top here, you see where it says daily apps. That's this group of buttons. And then I have a group called social. I call it social apps, I guess. But if I click here, I can change the name to whatever I want. And I can move things between the groups. I can change the size, how much I want it to take up the screen, both this way and this way. So it's pretty adjustable. I find I like this interface better than all of the other ones. I just put Windows 10 on this particular machine on Saturday, so I still got to clean up some of this stuff because when you install it, it'll automatically go and look for your applications and create the tiles for you. And in some cases, I don't want these tiles on here, so I'll just clean. Again, you're not getting rid of the application; you're just taking it off of here. So the other thing is you can get to your file explorer from here or from a button on the taskbar. So either one will take you to the same place. If I click here, it brings up the new file explorer. For those people that are familiar with using File Explorer on other versions of Windows, it's similar but better, I guess is how I would say it. So right now, when you open it up, first of all, you see frequent folders up at the top, and then the most recent 20 files shows here. So I can get to this stuff. Typically, most people work within the same stuff most of the time. So instead of me having to track something down, I can just click on the folder. I can either go to a folder from here or I can open a file that I've been working on. So like this webinar, I've been tweaking it for the last couple of days. I could just click on it and open up because it knows that I've been working on it. It puts it at the top. And then as things age and you use stuff more, it starts falling off of the bottom. There was a question that was brought up this morning about how well is Windows 10 integrated with Office 365. So it's very integrated. It's designed around working with Office 365. So for instance, in my File Explorer, these icons over here, and again, you can change this for looks about how you want to do it, but these folders here are actually in my Office 365 account. So they're up in the cloud, and I'm clicking on them here and accessing the files, even though they're in the cloud. For those of you that are really up on this, that's not really what's happening, but that's a different discussion. But for all practical purposes, this is totally interfaced with Office 365. All right, so that's the File Explorer. There's also underneath the Start button, a power, and this is where you would shut the machine down, restart it, or put it to sleep. And there's a couple different places to do that, but this is one of them right there. You also have, there's a button here, as I showed you before, called All Apps. And that just lists off, because you don't necessarily have all of your apps in here. You could, depends on how many applications you have. But this displays all of the apps on your system. And if it's something new that you installed, it'll show new here. So if you're trying to find something that you just installed, you could be able to see it. The reason why you see a lot of news on mine is, again, I just installed this on Saturday. So a lot of these apps that are in here are new. They're new apps. The other thing you can do with the Start menu is if you right click on it, for those people that are a little more techie and got into, if you need to get to the control panel and this and that, it's all here. So you right click on it and you have a lot of that functionality right at your fingertips here. Disk management, device management, power options. Power options here is a little different. This is not powering your machine on and off. This is where you adjust, when you want the screen to shut off after 15 minutes or an hour or whatever. But you can shut it down or restart from here as well. The other thing is the applications. When you open this particular application called Flipboard, I'm going to go ahead and open it. This application is designed for the Windows 8, Windows 10 environment. So in the past, with Windows 8, when I opened this application, it would take up the full screen, and I could not split screen and have multiple applications on the screen at the same time. When you use one of these Windows-based applications or new Windows-based applications, it would take full screen. That's all been changed. For those of you who were early on, if you use Windows 8 early on, the only way to close these windows was to, on a touch device, you would click at the top up here and drag down to the bottom of the screen. You can still do that now. I can get rid of, I'm moving it now, but I can close that window that way. But they actually added, and this occurred in Windows 8.1. It's not new to Windows 10. They added the buttons that we're all familiar with to minimize and resize and X out of the application. So there's a bunch of new functionality in that area. There's something called Tasks View. Tasks View has been actually way back in Windows. They came out with this. It's a way to switch between your applications. So if I click this button right here down in the lower left, it will display. Now, again, I have multiple monitors, so I have more applications that are showing up on here. They're actually showing up on the other two monitors. But all of the applications that are open show up here, and I can just click on any one that I want and switch into that application. You can basically toggle through or slide through them. So you were always able to do that. Most people didn't realize it and didn't use it all that much. You used to be able to use Alt-Tab, which, by the way, actually still works. All right. But one of the other things that's been done in Task View is you can now have, if over in the lower right over here, you see this button that says New Desktop. This is probably more for technical. I don't know if it's technical, but power users where you use lots of applications. You're a heavy user of Windows. But you can have multiple desktops now. They're virtual desktops. So let's say I have a desktop that I use for all my social media stuff. So I want to have Twitter opened up in there. I want to have Facebook, and I want to have Hootsuite and all of those things open and running. But I don't want them in my way while I'm working in, my normal Word, maybe doing some browsing or whatever. So you can create multiple. You can go in, create a new desktop, open up the apps that you want to run in that desktop, and open up the apps you want to have run in the other desktop, and you can actually switch between the desktops. So you just click a button and now you have all your social stuff. You don't have to like swap around things, and it's just you lay out multiple, and you can have multiple ones of these. Most users are not going to be heavy into this, but it's a pretty neat tool that if you experiment with it a little bit and take the time to kind of like get it embedded in your head, it probably would have some pretty good value for some of us. There was a question about the frequent folders, the wrong place, whether there's a limit to them. I don't know the answer to that. I think what happens here is there is a limit that once you go above it, because if you see there's a line right here, but you can also shrink some of this up. So I have a feeling that they're probably resizable to a certain extent. But I don't know if there's a limit to the open here. I know the files says, I did read into that, and it does do the 20. I have not done folders to see if it goes beyond 20, if it drops it off like it does on the documents. So I don't know the actual answer to that, but I will find out. All right, so as I said, there's a new browser called Edge. So it looks, the little icon down here looks similar to Internet Explorer, but it's not. It's a little different. And when you open it up, it's pretty totally different. It's very fast. When you're browsing around with this, it's extremely fast in comparison to, they've done analysis against all the other browsers, and this thing is the fastest. In most cases, it's the fastest overall of all of them. There are certain things that one or two of the other ones did, I think, a little bit better, or wasn't quite as, the spread wasn't quite as big. But when you're in here, it's very clean. It does multiple tabs like we're becoming used to with most of the browsers. I actually put the favorites bar back because I like it there, but that can be turned off. But some of the neat things that are in here, I'm going to go into an article, and when I did this morning, I clicked on an article that I kind of wish I didn't click into, but this one looks safe. So when I'm reading an article on the internet, one of the things that's gotten to be a real pain in the neck is all of this stuff, the advertisements, all of this stuff around. It's getting to be really a pain in the neck. So actually, I might not be able to do it with this particular page because of the way it's designed. Let me grab another page here. Yeah, here we go. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Go back. Okay, so as I say, you got all this clutter all around here. So what you can do with this is there's a button right up here, it looks like a book. It's called Reading View. When I click that, it actually takes and strips all that stuff out, and I can read the article without all that distraction, all that clutter. So that's actually pretty cool. But the other thing you can do too is we've always had a favorites page. So if I wanted to add this to my favorites, I click the little star as the favorites button. But what you can do though is not only favorites, but there's also something called a reading list. Now, right now, I actually have a couple different applications depending on what environment I'm in that I use for a reading list. And what that's for is maybe I see this article and I say, well, I want to read this, but I don't have time to read it right now. So instead of, cutting and pasting the link somewhere and then remembering to go look for it, I can simply add it to my reading list. And when I click on the reading list and I say add, now if I go and I actually look at the reading list, if I bring it up, these are the articles that I've selected that I want to read, and I can just click on them and it will open up the article and I can read it. If I wanted to now see my favorites, I click here like you had before, and you have your list of favorites. You could create groups of favorites, all pretty much the same stuff. You can import. So if you put this on, you're using Internet Explorer. I don't. Maybe it didn't show. I think it'll import. I know it imports from Internet Explorer and Chrome, and it will ask you. You can do both because on my machine, when I did when I did the import, it shows both. I suspect that that's because I don't have Firefox installed. If it saw Firefox, I assume, I'm not 100% sure, but I assume it would also import from there. So you can import from your other browsers. So that's pretty neat. But the thing that really makes this stand out a little bit is I can take this article now and I can click this little notepad button, and I now can actually mark up this web page. So I can pick a pen and I'll use this color for this demonstration. I can highlight stuff. Okay, I can do actually highlighting. Okay, I can erase. Well, for some reason my eraser is not working. That's new. But anyway, you can normally erase. I don't know why it's not working right there, but I can also do call outs. All right, and when I do this, what I can do now is I can save this page and then I can share it. I can send it by email. You have a couple different share functions, and they will continually add to that. So if I'm coming across something and I'm reading something that would be useful to other people and I want to mark it up and put my own notes on it, I can do all that from here. The other thing I can do from here is it has a little clipper built in. So I can come over here and highlight this, and now it's on my clipboard. I can open up Word or whatever and drop that in there. It could be text, it could be a picture, it could be both, and it will just drop it in there. So this is totally new functionality in any browser at this point, and it's built into Edge. Now, one of the other things that you can do in Edge is, I'm going to talk about Cortana in a minute, but I talked about it a little bit, but one of the things, Cortana is built into Edge. So what that means is, if I, let's see, I'm going to highlight this here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say Ask Cortana. And what it's going to do is open up Cortana, and it's going through and finding, in this case, it's just words. So it's searching the internet for, in this case, pictures, some also searched for. It gives the details of this Apache helicopter. So in this case, it's just going out and finding the information right from the browser. If I go to, let's see. If I go to some web page that actually, let's say, has an address on it, okay, I can right click on the address, say Ask Cortana, and it will actually go over here and give me a map. I can get directions. Again, all from right here. In this case, this is not my phone. I don't have any dial-in capability, but if there's a phone number, you could right click on it, and if it was a phone or your computer had dial-in capability, it would give you the option to dial it, etc. So it can be context sensitive as far as what you're doing, and also location sensitive. So when you're searching, if you and I'll talk about this when I get to Cortana, I'll get to a little bit more. But so right from the browser, you can pop up and do things using Cortana. Pretty cool. So that's a very quick overview of Edge. So from there, I want to talk a little bit about Cortana. So Cortana is, as I said, it's a personal assistant. So it's down here under Ask Me Anything, or this where it says Ask Me Anything here. If you have a phone or if you have a computer that has microphone capability, you can say, hey, Cortana, and it will actually open up. Actually, my phone just opened up on me because I said, hey, Cortana, my phone listened to me. I have to talk quietly. And what it would do is it pop up this little pop-up. First of all, you can tell it who you want to be called. You can define in here what you want to have as your default information. So I have some stocks showing, I have some news articles for business headlines, I have health headlines, top news, I have local news, technology news, or I guess Microsoft news, and then weather, and then food stuff. Now, so these are things you can program and set up, but the whole concept behind Cortana is that it's intelligent and it continually learns about you. Now, for some people, that can be a little scary. So there are a whole list of privacy settings that you can turn on and turn off in Cortana. So for instance, Cortana, if you tell it to, it can have access to your calendar. So I don't think I've set it up on here. I'll do a couple demo commands that I'll put in here, but so it can be connected to your calendar. You can say something like, what's my schedule tomorrow, and it will list off your schedule for tomorrow. So some of the basic stuff you could do, and again, I'm going to type it instead of talk it, but I can do stuff like ask questions. So I ask it what year Vanna White was born. It comes back and it tells me. Cool enough, but you could do that before. That's not really all that cool. But you can do stuff like So in this case, I'm asking it some questions and it's related to weather and it's related to a particular day. So it goes out and it's saying, this is the weather forecast for Saturday, August 22nd. All right, so it's using some intelligence here. You can do stuff like set reminders. Remind. Let's see. What do I want to? Okay. So in this case, it's going to set a reminder in my calendar to install Windows Saturday, because I said next Saturday, August 29th. I did not select the time, so I have the option to put a time here. But if I said 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it would have put that. And then it's asking me, is this a one-time event or is it a recurring event? So again, it's now this is interacting with my calendar and it's using dates. The other thing that is kind of cool, and I've actually used this on my phone, is so what this is going to do, this is setting a reminder, and this is location based. So right now it's showing 1500 Litchfield Turnpike. If I set this and now I go into Home Depot, when I'm in Home Depot, my phone, and in the case of the phone, my phone's going to pop up and say you wanted to be reminded to get paint. If I'm in Waterbury and I go to Home Depot there, it knows that this is Home Depot, and it'll say you wanted to be reminded to pick up paint. So you can do stuff like that. Now it even gets cooler than that. So I haven't set it up on here yet, but on my home computer, I have this set up. There's actually a section that for your deliveries. So if we order something on Amazon, I don't have to tell Cortana anything. It goes out and it says your delivery has been shipped and it's going to be delivered today, or here's where it's at, or whatever. It knows, it talks to those services. A couple of weeks ago, I was sitting at my desk. I had an appointment down in Danbury at a certain time, and my phone popped up and it said to me, you have an appointment, I don't remember what time, 2 o'clock, you better leave now because there's a traffic jam on Route 84. Really wild stuff. And as I say, as you go through this, it learns more, continually learns about you. When we saw this thing before about the restaurants, you tell it what kind of food. No, this is just bringing up more news. You tell it what kind of food that you want. It's not showing up. And so if I'm in right now, it's displayed a list of restaurants and it's within the area that we're in. The week before last, when I was on vacation, when I popped up this window and it showed the restaurants, it showed the restaurants for near the location that I was at. It knows about your location and stuff, so it's is able to adjust. Very neat technology. Works actually. I think it works. It's more powerful on a phone right now than on the computer, but it works in both cases, and it's pretty neat. So those are kind of the new technologies that are built in. As I said, most all of them are, well, all of them are available now. In some cases, you need to have certain hardware to make them work. But what I wanted to do to finish up is just give you a couple, some of our experience and our advice, and then we can take some questions. Our experience so far with this is we've installed it on a bunch of different types of machines, laptops, tablets. I actually install it on a phone. I do not advise people install it. If you have a Windows phone, do not install the demo unless you really know about, not demo, beta, unless you really understand about betas, because it's flaky, and that's to be expected. But beyond that, we put Windows on a bunch of different devices. We've had very little issues. Generally, what's happening in the industry there are some issues. There are issues with video drivers. That seems to be almost the number one thing that people are having issues with the upgrade is video drivers. If you have newer machines, newer kind of standard video stuff, you shouldn't have a problem. But if you have very inexpensive machines, seems to have trouble with video drivers. And if you have a very high-end video card, you need to make sure you can get Windows 10 drivers. Some of the old drivers will just work, but I would check into that first. The other thing that well, as I said before, our advice is for businesses. You don't have to worry about, oh, we got to get Windows 10. You know, what's our plan? I wouldn't really worry about that at this point. You're probably looking, in most cases, in the past, I would tell you, you're looking probably a year out before we would advise clients to start, playing around with new operating systems. I will say with Windows 10 though, that I think that's going to be different. So on our machines that we build right now, as of today, we are still by default installing Windows 8.1. However, if you would like Windows 10, you just tell us and we'll put it on. We have Windows 10 in stock. My guess is probably around October, I'm going to flip that. And by default, there'll be Windows 10. And if you rather have Windows 8.1, we'll put that on. And the reason why I say that is if you're going to 8.1, it's very similar to 10. If you're going from 7 to 8.1, you might as well go 7 to 10, in my opinion. So now that's not hard, fast that I'm going to do that. I just think that that's going to be the case because it really is. I don't see it as a big issue. I don't see Windows 10 as a big issue for the regular user. So as I say, no rush, but if you have lots of machines or you're in an environment where you have lots of different applications and things, my advice would be to get a laptop or get a workstation with Windows 10 and start doing your due diligence, start testing your applications and things like that. Our experience with applications is, for myself and all the people here that have put it on, I'm not aware of any application that we've had any issues with. As I say, we did have one person here had some trouble with video drivers on his machine, but that's been it. Now, I don't use old stuff. Most of my applications are relatively new, not all. I do, for my photography stuff, I do use some applications that are pretty, CPU intensive and all of that stuff, and video intensive, and there has been no issue. So generally, I think this is pretty good. There are some issues, as I said, with video drivers. The other issue is more, it's not technical. It's a personal thing, I guess. Windows 10 does share a lot of information. You can control a bunch of it. But a bunch of it is just happens in the background. It's tracking usage so that it can, so they can enhance their make sure stuff is working right, or make changes so that it works better. So there's a bunch of things. Now, as I tell people, that's happening every day on pretty much all of your applications. If you're using an iPad or an iPhone, they're collecting information. If you're going on Facebook or you're going on Amazon, they're collecting information. So yeah, we could argue good, bad, or whatever. I'm just saying it's there, as well as Windows 10 is not different in that respect. So that's my feeling on that. The other big thing is a lot of the functionality, or some of the technologies that have been built in here, were originally designed around consumer-related stuff. So even like Cortana and all of that. And now it's being introduced into businesses. And Microsoft still is dependent upon the user having a Microsoft account to to utilize some of these functions. So we are investigating in here, how do we go about that? Because from a home standpoint, so what? You just do it, you have create your Microsoft account and you're all set, there's no problem. In the business environment with employees and all of that, we don't want just everybody making up their own accounts and nobody knowing what they are and all of those things. So we're actually evaluating that now, and that's why I'm saying I think for most businesses, you want to wait a little while to see how some of these things shake out. Because that's Microsoft is in the process of changing that, and a lot of their services you just use your regular login account, especially if you're using Office 365. It actually uses your login account, so that will help that. But that's one issue we ran into. So that's kind of what Windows 10 is. I'm going to go ahead and I want to give it a shot to open the phones if there are questions, and we can talk about it. So the phone should be open. Anybody have any questions? Has anybody tried using Windows 10 yet? I would guess probably not. So if there's, again, if there's any questions, I'll go ahead and answer them. Otherwise, I'll let everybody go back to work. Thanks for taking your time to sit in on this. Hopefully you got some idea of at least what Windows, the goal today was just to give people kind of an overview of what Windows 10 is. You're hearing about it and even on the TV now, and I'm sure you'll be hearing about it in some cases from employees and things. I wanted people to be aware about what it is and kind of what our thoughts are on relative to applying it to businesses. Again, it's a different thing working with even applications or operating systems or hardware or whatever when you're talking about home situations as opposed to business situations. So I want everybody to see that. So one more time, if there's any questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, have a great day.